The alien dragon ship screamed as it tore through the sky, its once majestic form now a broken, twisted shadow of its former self. Sparks flew from the ship's engines, the glow of emergency lights flashing wildly across its metallic surface. With a final, thunderous crash, the ship slammed into the barren ground of a desolate, rocky planet. The once proud dragon ship was now a wreck, lying in a vast, lifeless landscape. Inside the ship, chaos erupted. Alien crew members rushed from one corner to another, shouting orders in their strange, guttural language. There was a sense of panic in the air. The ship, the pride of their fleet, was destroyed. It was supposed to be the ultimate weaponer ship that could fly across galaxies and defend the Empire. But now, it was nothing more than a pile of scrap. Metal, stranded far from home. The crew of the dragon ship gathered in the control room, their alien faces pale with worry. The captain, a tall, commanding figure with sharp features, paced back and forth. His eyes darted between the damaged monitors, his mind racing. His people were warriors, builders, and navigators. But when it came to repairing the ship, they were helpless. None of them knew how to fix the complex systems that powered the dragon ship. They were strong, but they were not engineers. The engines are completely fried. One of the crew shouted, banging his fists against a control panel. We're stranded here with no way to get home. The captain slammed his fist into the wall, his frustration building. The crew was talented, but this was beyond their expertise. They needed someone who understood technology, someone who could think outside of their narrow training. Someone who could fix the ship before it was too late. Is there anyone out there who can help us? The captain growled, his voice barely a whisper. He knew the answer, but he had to ask. Desperation was setting in, and with it, a hint of fear. At that very moment, a voice interrupted the silence, a voice that no one expected to hear. It came from the ship's communication system, a small, unnoticed panel in the corner of the room. The captain looked up, startled. His eyes locked onto the speaker in disbelief. It's a human. One of the crew gasped. The human technician's voice crackled through the static, calm and steady. I'm hearing your distress signal. I'm a technician from the nearby outpost. I can help you fix your ship. The room fell silent. The aliens stared at the speaker, unsure of how to react. A human? Here, on this strange, desolate planet. The captain's mind raced. Humans were nothing like the aliens he commanded. They were weak, fragile creatures, not built for the harshness of space travel. But this human was offering to fix their ship. Could they trust him? We don't need a human's help, one of the crew members said harshly. Humans are not equipped for this kind of work. The captain's gaze turned to the crew member who spoke. His expression hardened. He knew they had no choice but to accept help from this stranger. They were stranded, with no other options. But he could not shake the feeling of discomfort. How could a human, a race known for its primitive technology, repair their advanced ship? We need to get the ship back in working order, the captain said, his voice cold and determined. No matter where the help comes from, if this human can help us, we will accept it. The crew murmured in disagreement, but the captain's word was final. They had no choice but to follow his lead. A strange sense of tension hung in the air as the captain turned to the communication panel. Human, the captain said, his voice firm, we will allow you to come aboard. But no, you are not welcome here because of your race. You are here because we have no other choice. The human's voice crackled through the speakers again, calm and unwavering. Understood, I'll be there shortly, asked the crew. Prepared for the human's arrival, the captain stood in the center of the room, his mind racing. They had no idea what they were about to face. Could a human really repair their ship? Or were they doomed to remain stranded on this forgotten, Planet the Dragon ship's crew gathered in silence as they awaited the arrival of the human technician. Tension filled the air. The crew's skepticism was thick, and some whispered among themselves. To them, the very idea of a human stepping aboard their majestic ship was unthinkable. Humans were nothing more than weak, fragile creatures who could never understand the complexities of an advanced alien ship like theirs. "They'll never be able to fix this," muttered one of the engineers, shaking his head. "How can someone so simple understand what we've built?" The captain, still staring at the communication panel, clenched his fists. He had no choice. The human's offer had been their only hope. He could feel the weight of his decision pressing on him, but there was no turning back now. They had to trust this outsider, no matter how uncomfortable it made him feel. Moments later, the hatch to the dragon ship's airlock slid open with a soft hiss. The crew tensed, waiting for the human technician to step aboard. A figure appeared in the doorway. At first glance, the technician looked even more out of place than the captain had imagined. His clothes were simple, a far cry from the sleek uniforms the crew wore. His eyes were wide with curiosity, but there was no hesitation in his step. He seemed calm, even confident, though the alien crew stood around him, staring at him as if he were some kind of strange animal. The captain stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "You are the technician who claims to repair our ship?" The human nodded, his voice steady. "Yes, I can. I've seen your distress signal, and I've worked on ships like this before. You just need the right tools and the right knowledge." A murmur went through the crew. Some of them exchanged looks, disbelief and doubt written clearly on their faces. They couldn't believe that a human, someone so beneath them in status, was offering such bold claims. "You're a human." One of the engineers scoffed, stepping forward with his arms crossed. "What do you know about the dragon ship? It's beyond anything your kind has ever created." The human technician didn't flinch. "I know more than you think. I may not come from your world, but I can understand technology. I've repaired starships in the past, and I can do it again." The captain studied the technician for a long moment. The human's confidence was striking, but the captain could see the hesitation in the eyes of his crew. They were not ready to trust him. They were used to working with their own kind, beings who understood the intricacies of their advanced technology. But this human was different. He was from a race they had always viewed as inferior. How could they accept help from someone so insignificant? Finally, the captain spoke, his voice colder now. "You will have one chance. You fail, you will be removed, and we will find another way to escape this planet. Do you understand?" The human technician nodded without hesitation. "Understood. But I need access to the main control room and the engine bay. Without that, there's no way I can make the repairs." The crew reluctantly moved aside, parting, like a sea of judgmental eyes. The technician stepped forward, walking past them and into the heart of the dragon ship. The captain, though his pride stung, followed him. He needed to see if this human truly could do what he claimed. There was no other option. They had no time to waste. As they moved deeper into the ship, the technician began to examine the damaged systems, his eyes scanning the broken machinery with ease. The captain watched closely, still unsure whether to believe in the technician's words. "We'll need to recalibrate the power core," the human said, tapping a control panel. "And the engines are not beyond repair, but it's going to take some time." The captain crossed his arms, still unsure. "Time is something we don't have. We need to leave before our enemies find us." The technician turned to him, his face serious. "I understand that, but if we don't do this right, we'll be stranded here forever." The tension between the crew and the technician remained thick, but the technician had begun working with determination. Each movement, each adjustment he made seemed to impress the captain. But the crew's doubts hadn't disappeared. They watched as the human technician took charge of the repair work. But none of them were ready to admit it yet. The captain, though still unsure, couldn't ignore the technician's skill. Maybe, just maybe, this human could save them after all. As the hours passed, the human technician worked tirelessly, his hands moving quickly from one system to the next. The crew watched, their disbelief slowly giving way to curiosity. The captain stood in the corner of the room, his arms crossed, watching the human. He was still skeptical. But something in the technician's focused movements made him pause. The ship's systems were intricate, designed by an ancient alien race and far beyond the understanding of most. But the human was working with a level of precision and ease that the crew couldn't deny. They had never seen anything like it. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" one of the crew members asked, his voice tinged with doubt. The technician didn't look up. "I know exactly what I'm doing. Trust me, I've fixed ships like this before. I just need to figure out what's causing the main power surge." The technician's words weren't just calm, they were confident. But it wasn't enough to completely erase the crew's doubts. The ship had been built to withstand almost anything, but here it was, broken and dying. How could a human possibly repair something so advanced? As the technician continued his work, he stumbled upon something unexpected. A hidden compartment in the ship's hull that no one had noticed before. It was small, hidden deep within the ship's complex systems, and it hummed with a strange energy. The human's eyes widened. "What is this?" He moved closer, reaching out to touch the compartment. His fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the hidden door, and it slowly slid open, revealing a glowing crystal inside. The technician froze. This was no ordinary power source. It was ancient, far older than the ship itself. The captain, noticing the technician's sudden pause, stepped closer. "What have you found?" The technician turned to face him, his expression serious. "This isn't just a ship. It's part of something much bigger. This crystal, it's a power source, yes, but it's also a key. I believe this ship is connected to an ancient technology, something far more advanced than what you or I could ever understand." The captain's face hardened. "Explain yourself." The technician took a step back, his mind racing. "This crystal isn't just a battery, it's an interface. It connects the ship to a higher-level networks, something beyond your empire's knowledge. It's as if the ship itself is alive, and this crystal is the heart of it." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The captain's eyes narrowed. "If what you're saying is true, then why didn't we know about it?" "I don't know," the technician replied honestly. "But this ship was built by a race that is far beyond what your people can comprehend. Whoever created it had knowledge of technology that even your empire has forgotten. This ship was never meant to be used by just anyone. It was meant to be controlled by a chosen few." The captain was silent for a long moment, processing the human's words. He could feel the weight of the situation. This was no longer just about repairing a ship. This was about uncovering a secret that could change the future of the galaxy. "You're telling me that our ship is a relic of a forgotten civilization?" the captain asked. "Yes," the technician confirmed. "But there's more. This ship could be a weapon unlike anything you've ever seen." A cold shiver ran down the captain's spine. He had never thought of the dragon ship in those terms before. It had always been a symbol of power, a tool for their empire. But now, he understood that it was more than that. This ship held the potential to reshape the galaxy. And if it fell into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything they had built. "We need to repair the ship and activate it," the technician said. "But we also need to understand its purpose. If we don't, it could become a dangerous weapon. One we might not be able to control." The crew was now completely silent. The technician's words hung in the air. heavy with the realization that they had stumbled upon something far greater than a mere mechanical failure. This ship wasn't just broken, it was hiding something far more powerful beneath its surface. The captain stepped forward, his eyes locked on the technician. "You're not just repairing this ship, are you? You're unlocking something dangerous." The technician didn't reply immediately. He simply nodded, "Yes. And I'm not sure if we're ready for what we might find." The crew was now fully aware that they were no longer just trying to fix a damaged ship. They were dealing with a force that could change the galaxy forever. And they had no idea what they had just unearthed. The silence in the control room was heavy as the crew processed the technician's words. They had come to fix the dragon ship, but now they were uncovering secrets that could change everything. The captain stood near the entrance, his expression unreadable. He had trusted his crew for years, but this human had just told him that their ship held a power far beyond their understanding. "Is this true?" the captain asked, his voice quieter than before. "Can we really control this power?" The technician glanced at him, his brow furrowed. "I'm not sure. The ship's systems are ancient, and it's not just a weapon. It's part of something much bigger, something older than any of us. If we don't understand it, it could be dangerous. If it falls into the wrong hands, it might destroy everything you've built." The captain's fists clenched. He had never felt more conflicted. The dragon ship was supposed to be their greatest asset, a symbol of strength and power. But now, it seemed like a ticking time bomb. Was it really worth fixing? What if they couldn't control it? "I will not let this ship become a threat," the captain said, his voice firm. "We will unlock its secrets, but only if it can be safely used." "You said this ship was designed for a chosen few. Who were these chosen ones?" The technician paused, his eyes narrowing in thought. "I don't know, but I believe it was a race far older than any you've encountered. Whoever they were, they knew how to harness power beyond your wildest dreams." The captain's mind raced. He had always thought his people were the most advanced in the galaxy, but now he was facing a reality where his race was not at the top. They had much to learn. The crew, still uncertain, exchanged glances. They had come to depend on their captain's decisions, but now they were in unfamiliar territory. The human had proven himself useful with the repairs, but was he truly an ally, or was he just another player in a much larger game? The technician turned back to the crystal, still glowing in the hidden compartment. He could sense the ship's ancient energy, the power that had once flowed through it and now lay dormant. He knew this was no ordinary mission. The fate of the ship, and perhaps the galaxy, rested on what they discovered next. As the technician continued his work, the captain approached him, his posture relaxed but his face serious. "You've done more than I expected," he said, his voice softer now. "I never thought a human could accomplish what you've done so far. But we need to be careful. This ship is more than a tool, it's a force." The technician glanced up, surprised by the captain's words. The hostility he had felt earlier was gone, replaced by a reluctant respect. "I understand," the technician said quietly, "but I'm just trying to help. You've trusted me with this ship. I won't let you down." For the first time since their encounter, the captain nodded. "I'm starting to believe you." It was a small gesture, but for the technician, it meant a lot. It wasn't just about repairing a ship anymore. It was about earning the trust of a species that had once rejected him. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There were still many questions, and much was still unknown about the ship's true power. But for the first time, the technician felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. Hours passed, and the technician worked in silence, the captain by his side. They had come a long way since the human's arrival, and the crew was slowly starting to accept the technician's presence. There were still some who whispered doubts behind his back, but the captain had started to trust him. And that was enough. As the ship's systems hummed to life, the technician felt a sense of accomplishment. He had fixed the ship, yes, but he had also built something far more important. A bridge between two species that had once seen each other as nothing more than enemies. The technician turned to the captain, who stood with his arms crossed, watching the ship slowly come back to life. The ship's core had activated, its glowing crystal pulsing with a faint light. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when two different worlds worked together. "You're doing well," the captain said, his voice filled with an almost grudging admiration. "I never expected a human to be the one to repair our ship. But I can't deny that you've done more than we could have ever hoped." The technician nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. "Thank you. I just did my job." For the first time, the captain smiled slightly, but enough to show that he no longer saw the technician as an outsider. It was a start, a small step toward something more. And for the technician, that small step meant everything. The hours had stretched into a tense silence as the technician continued to work on the Dragon ship. The crew, though still wary, began to see the first signs of life returning to the ship. The main engines hummed softly, the ship's core glowing brighter with every passing minute. The ship that had once seemed beyond repair was now coming back to life. All thanks to the human. But as the ship revived, so did the doubts. The captain could see the unease in the eyes of his crew. They were still hesitant, still uncertain. They had allowed the human technician to fix the ship, but could they really trust him with more than just repairs? The technician was standing near the engine core, adjusting the final settings. The hum of the engines filled the room, a sign that the ship was nearly functional again. But the captain knew that something bigger was coming. They were about to face a decision that could change the future of their species, the galaxy. "You've done more than we expected," the captain said, his voice steady, but there was a hint of something deeper. "The ship is nearly ready, but now there's another problem. We're not just repairing this ship anymore. We need to know how to control its power." The technician paused, his hands stilling over the panel. He turned to the captain, his eyes serious. "What do you mean by control?" "I fixed the engines. But I don't know if we can fully control the power of the ship. It's too complex. The crystal, it's more than just a power source. It's an interface to something far beyond what you or I have ever seen." The captain's gaze hardened. "We can't afford to have something this powerful out of our control. If it's truly a weapon, we need to understand how to use it and how to protect ourselves from it." The technician nodded. "I understand. But I can't promise that we'll be able to control it. This technology is far older and more advanced than anything you've ever encountered. It might take more than just fixing the systems. It might take something more." The crew had gathered around the technician and the captain, each of them standing silently, listening intently. There was an unspoken understanding that something important was about to happen. The decision they were about to make could change everything. "We need to understand this ship completely," the captain said, his voice calm but firm. "You've unlocked the first step by repairing the ship, but now we need to know if it's safe. Can you do that?" The technician hesitated for a moment. It was a difficult question, one that he didn't have an answer to. The truth was, he wasn't sure how much he could control the ship's power. The technology was alien, and the crystal was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was beyond what humans could understand. "I'll try," he said, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "But we may need to be cautious. If we activate the crystal fully, it could open up pathways that we don't understand. A chance we could unlock something dangerous." The captain looked at him, the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had trusted the human technician, but now they were entering uncharted territory. They needed this power to defend their people, but what if it was too much to handle? "I understand," the captain said. "We'll take it step by step, but we need to know what this ship can do. If it's a weapon, we'll use it to protect ourselves. If it's too dangerous, we'll lock it down before anyone can misuse it." The technician nodded, moving to the control panel with a sense of determination. He knew this wasn't just about repairing a ship anymore. This was about understanding the unknown and possibly unleashing a power that could change the course of the galaxy. He felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. As the technician worked, the captain watched from a distance, his mind racing with the possibilities. Could they control the ship, or was it too dangerous? There was no turning back now. Whatever happened next, they had to be ready. Finally, the technician turned to the captain. "I've activated the core," he said. "We've unlocked the ship's power. But now we need to decide what to do with it. We have the ability to use this ship for something incredible, but we also have the ability to destroy ourselves." The crew stood still, the tension thick in the air. The captain's eyes met the technician's, and for the first time, the captain wasn't sure what to say. They had come so far, but they were standing on the edge of something much larger than they had ever imagined. The decision was no longer just about saving the ship. It was about whether they were willing to risk everything to control the power they had. Unlocked, the room was heavy with tension as the technician and the captain stared at the glowing crystal in the heart of the dragon ship. The power core pulsed with an eerie light, humming softly, almost like a heartbeat. It was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. The ship was now fully functional, but the question remained: what should they do with the power they had unlocked? The captain paced back and forth, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. His thoughts were racing. The technician had made it clear the ship's power wasn't just for protection or travel. It was a weapon so powerful it could change the balance of the galaxy. If they used it, they could defend their people like never before. But if they misused it, they could destroy everything they had built. "I don't trust it," the captain muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "This power, ... it's too much for any one race to control." The technician watched him, his expression unreadable. He knew the captain was struggling with the decision. He could feel the weight of it too. The power of the dragon ship was unlike anything either of them had ever seen. If they used it, they could wipe out their enemies in an instant. But if they weren't careful, it could just as easily destroy them. The crew stood quietly in the background, waiting for their captain to make the decision. Some of them had been quiet since the technician had repaired the ship, still unsure of whether they could truly trust him. But now, they were all looking at the captain for guidance. The fate of their mission, and possibly the entire galaxy, rested in his hands. "Are we ready for this?" Captain asked, turning to the technician. "Can we control it?" The technician hesitated, then nodded. "I've activated the core, and I've seen the power it can unleash. But we have no idea what the full extent of it is. We've only scratched the surface. If we open the ship's full potential, there's no telling what might happen." The captain's jaw tightened. He was the leader of his people, the one who had always made decisions for the good of his crew. But this was different. He wasn't sure if he was ready to risk everything on the unknown. One of the crew members stepped forward. A tall and serious-looking alien who had been silent up until now. His voice was steady but filled with concern. "Captain, if we leave this power unchecked, we risk falling behind our enemies. They'll come for us, and we'll have nothing left to defend ourselves." The captain nodded grimly. He knew the truth of that. His people had enemies, powerful enemies, who wouldn't hesitate to wipe them out if given the chance. But using the ship's power could put them at the same risk if we use it. We could become unstoppable. The technician added, his voice calm but filled with an underlying urgency. But we must be careful. This power could change everything. We need to decide if we're ready to control it. The room fell silent again. The decision was theirs to make, but it wasn't an easy one. The captain glanced around the room at his crew, their faces filled with worry and uncertainty. They had all come so far, but now, at the final step, they had to decide whether to take the leap into the unknown. The captain stepped forward, his mind made up. He looked at the technician, then at his crew. "We've come too far to turn back now," he said, his voice steady and filled with resolve. "We will use this power, but we will do it carefully. We will unlock its full potential, but we will also keep control. No one will use it recklessly." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We will use it for the good of our people. We will defend our homes, but we will not let it become a weapon of destruction." The technician nodded, understanding the captain's decision. It was the only way forward. They couldn't let fear hold them back, but they couldn't be reckless either. They would use the ship's power wisely, and they would control it. The crew seemed to relax slightly at the captain's words, though the tension still lingered in the air. They knew the risks, but they also knew the stakes. Their survival depended on what they did next. The technician stepped up to the control panel, his fingers hovering over the buttons. "I'll activate the final sequence," he said, his voice calm but serious. "Once we do this, there's no turning back." The captain gave a single nod. "Do it." The technician pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the ship's core began to glow brighter, its power surging through the ship's systems. The walls vibrated slightly as the ship hummed to life, its engines roaring with strength. The dragon ship, once broken and abandoned, was now fully powered and ready to go. But this time, it was different. It was no longer just a tool for war, it was a symbol of their strength, a force that could change everything. The technician stepped back, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. He had done it. They had done it now. The real test began. Would they be able to control this power, or would it control them? The dragon ship hummed with life. Its once damaged systems were now fully restored, and its power had surged back to full strength. The control room was filled with the steady pulse of the engines, the sound of a ship reborn. The captain stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the stars outside the ship's massive windows. The ship was no longer just a tool, it was a weapon, a symbol of their strength and unity. But now, the real test began. The technician stood beside the captain, his hands still slightly trembling from the strain of the repairs. He had done what no one thought was possible. The ship was fixed, but now they had to face the question of what came next. Could they truly control the power they had unlocked? Could they use it for good, or would it consume them all? "We're ready," the technician said, his voice steady, but his eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "The ship is functioning perfectly. It's all in your hands now." The captain nodded, his jaw tight. He had trusted the technician, and now he had to trust in their decision. The crew, though still unsure of the human's place among them, stood by, waiting for their leader to give the command. There was no turning back now. The ship was fully operational, and their enemies would not wait. "We'll take off at once," the captain said, his voice filled with authority. "We've wasted too much time already. The galaxy will know that the dragon ship is back. And with it, they'll know the power of our people." He turned to the crew, his eyes meeting theirs. "We've come together to fix what was broken. And now we will use this power for the good of our people. We will defend our homes, our families, and everything we hold dear." The crew responded with a quiet nod, their eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. They didn't fully trust Ship's power, but they knew they had no choice. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and they needed every advantage they could get. The technician stepped back, watching as the captain gave the order. Slowly, the ship's engines roared to life. The vibrations through the floor told them that the dragon ship was ready for flight. Outside the windows, the stars were waiting. They had come so far, and now they were finally ready to leave the desolate planet that had been their prison. With a final look around the control room, the captain pressed the button to engage the ship's engines. The dragon ship lifted off the ground with ease, the power of its engines pushing it upward into the vast expanse of space. For a moment, the crew felt a rush of excitement, of relief. They were no longer stranded. They were free. But that freedom came with a price. The power within the ship, the ancient energy that had been unlocked, was still an unknown. As the ship ascended, the technician remained at the back of the room, his mind racing. He had unlocked something incredible, but he still didn't know how much control they had over it. The ship was alive with energy, but could they harness it without destroying themselves? "We're heading toward the galactic core," the captain said, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "It's time to show the galaxy that we are not to be underestimated." The technician nodded, still watching the ship's systems closely. The power of the crystal had surged to its peak, and he could feel it. The ship was ready to do incredible things, but at the same time, there was an unsettling feeling in the air. He couldn't shake the thought that they were standing on the edge of something much bigger than themselves. As the ship soared deeper into space, the technician glanced at the captain. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "We're pushing the ship to its limits. What if we can't control it?" The captain turned to him, his face hardening. "We don't have the luxury of waiting. If we don't act now, we risk losing everything. The power we've unlocked can either be our salvation or our doom, but we're going to take that risk." The technician stared at him, understanding the gravity of the captain's words. They were no longer just repairing a ship, they were wielding a force that could change the fate of the galaxy. The dragon ship cut through the stars, its engines glowing brighter with each passing second. The crew, though uncertain, stood by their captain. They had come together in a moment of crisis, and now they were standing united as they faced the unknown, as the ship sailed deeper into the galaxy. The crew knew that their journey was only just beginning. They had unlocked a power that could reshape everything, and now they had to decide how to use it. Would they control it, or would it control them?